And that's essentially what makes Goju so special, is this ebb and flow between the physical hardness and a soft gentleness that is still extremely powerful and brutal. Onegaishimasu. Welcome back to the Goju Karate Center. Randori, continuous, anything goes kind of fighting. And typically in Goju, very close quarters fighting, and we are building from the very, very bottom. Hey, onegaishimasu. So our first exercise is basically a facilitation exercise. It is not fighting. We're going to do a lot of facilitation or drilling before we get to fighting. And typically to any kind of martial art, obviously for every movement, every system that we're applying, there is an escape, there is a counter, there is a counter to the counter to the counter to the counter, and so on and so forth. So it's very, very important to realize that it is not a finite answer. I don't have finite answers on combat. Every combative situation is different. I'm going to facilitate. I will attack. My job is to facilitate the movement of my opponent's legs to help him move better and to get him to a better position and to train and to drill this so he becomes comfortable with it. So my first attack is not going to be a straight punch. It's actually going to be a hammer fist. I'm going to use same arm, same leg. I'm going to step forward. And as I step forward, Brian is going to move to the outside and he's going to try and get between my elbow, my shoulder, and he would be essentially be checking out my head to see that there's no earwax. That's our terminology in the dojo. When I get to this position, I now am forced to attack and he's on the side. So obviously, yes, there are other attacks, but for now, because we're just facilitating, I'm going to be attacking and I'm going to force him to step and I'm going to step through. And it goes slow as it needs to be. Now, if I want to confuse him, I may attack with the same hand again and again. But the whole time, I'm working on trying to get my opponent to help them move around me, to get to the side. So, exercise drill number 1 starts like this, hammer fist down, and my opponent is concentrating only on using footwork, no blocking. Absolute faith in me that I'm not going to clock him in the head, and he's just moving. Drill number 2. We now introduce straightish punches. And at this point, we're working towards a face punch. And yes, you can bob, weave, duck, dive. Whole bunch of options in how to deal with it. But again, our facilitation is to facilitate something similar. Movement of the feet, movement of the body off the line of the attack. Breaking the line, breaking the distance, and coming in closer. So my attack is coming, he's moving. We never go back to center. From here, Brian does not come back to center. Don't ever bother about coming back to center. If I force Brian here, I am now being forced to change direction on my next attack. And I'm not trying to knock his head off. I'm just trying to facilitate his movement. Now we move to exercise number 3. So the first one was a hammer fist. The second one is punch. Exercise number 3 is the hook. Now, for this, we work extensively on introducing wax on, wax off. All right, tribute to the Karate Kid series, and the first block that Daniel's son learns, wax on, wax off, and is essentially our hikeuke. Now, some schools maybe sword hand block, but the reality is that it is anything where you can intercept, redirect, and suppress the technique. So, as I hook, he's going to intercept, he's going to redirect and suppress the technique. Intercept, redirect, and suppress. So, we're just facilitating the movement and making sure that our opponent is moving around. He's paying attention the entire time. Most people are conveniently built around the idea of forward and backward movement. And most schools teach mainly forward and backward movement. When they spar, everything is kind of in those long linear lines. And that's great for the start. We're trying to outflank our opponent. If your opponent is allowed the opportunity to keep on attacking and to just keep on rolling attacks at you, sooner or later, their forward momentum will probably carry over you. So as much as possible, we don't want to be dealing with block, 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 block. They're eventually going to get you. And, at that point, your face and your body is just going to get pounded. So what we really want to do is we want to start moving to the sides. We want to start breaking the angles, changing the lines. We don't want to give people that space. And typically, what is a Goju mentality, we want to close the distance and try and control our opponent. And as much as possible, if you look at what our bunkai is trying to do, we're trying to get to that point where we can actually engage, grab, seize, hold, suppress, and bring in a counter attack to the face, to the body, to the groin, to the legs. And in doing this, we then start building kumite and randori. I shouldn't call it kumite. Randori, that is essentially an expression of Goju kata into combat. We take those first 3 exercises, and from there we start building our first set of intellectual cognitive games as such. So I'm the attacker, and I have to use them 1, 2, 3. I may not repeat a technique unless it's between 3 and 4. I can repeat arms that I want to use, but I can change left, right, left, right. I don't have to stick to it. Okay, so I'm going to continually attack, but I'm only allowed to use those 3 sets of attacks. So let's say 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oopsie. But he managed it. He dealt with it. And that's the critical part. And so we start building on this. Now, if we do this for 5 minutes, and then I do it for 5 minutes, eventually we're working on good movement. And you can see Brian's kind of comfortable moving in these kind of spaces at this point in time. Now we're going to start building onto the idea of it's no longer a bit of facilitation, but it's going to be an ebb and a flow backward and forward between the two of us. So now it's 3 attacks. So this would be our exercise number 5. So 1, 2, 3. At this point, Brian is about to start. He's effectively going to counter his blocking and controlling. His counter is becoming his first attack. All right? 1, 2, and 3. And my first attack. 1, 2, and 3. And 1, 2, and 3. And so we build. At the whole time, we're trying to always block and stick and have a certain amount of stickiness, but we're not necessarily seizing on. And we're going up and down, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. All right? At a certain point, it's just going to become like kind of obvious that nobody's going to stand around for 3 attacks. And obviously, we're getting tired and getting bored of the same 3 hand attacks, which are essentially working on 3 different sets of trajectories. All right, something that's a little bit of a linear attack versus something that is this versus something that's this. So first thing you can do is you can change the heights. At this point, we've been using most of our attacks in a high area, but we can start bringing in lower attacks. Next block. Blocking down and round, using the arms in this kind of fashion. So if I'm blocking, I can block this way, I can block this way. Should Brian be punching low, instead of doing a hard block and relying only on this hard block, 100% is on the block. If something would happen and I was to miss, he might still connect. And since he's aiming low and he hits me in the groin, it's probably going to be reasonably effective. However, if I am to double down on my technique, if he's attacking low and I move, I've now moved off the line. I've broken it. So this footwork becomes very critical, and a nice strong block is important. But it mustn't become the only thing that you practice. We're now going to change the attack, and we're going to see how Brian does. I'm going to be attacking the 3 attack combination from a little bit earlier, and I'm now going to be changing the trajectories. Obviously, this hammer fist coming down from the top, I might change to across the body or for the groin. The hooks are going to become liver shots, and the punches are going to become shorter punches towards the body, either as short punches or as straight, longer punches. Okay, so let's see how it goes, Brian. And again, just try and block and move. And again, once again, I'm not trying to prove how macho I am, I'm trying to facilitate his movement. Here we go. So you see how you're stuck? You've got to try and move around it. So move around it. Move around it. That's it. Oh. Do that. What's going to happen? Move to the outside. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. As we're working on this, I think it's critical to go back a few steps and then go back to step 1. So step 1, we did hammer fist. All right, so I'm going to do hammer fist, tetsui to your groin. Your sole objective is move to the outside. Come on, Brian. Get your body right out the way. All right, you still want good close proximity, Brian. Okay, so that's drill 1. Drill number 2 was the straight punches. And again, moving to the outside and trying to keep closeness to the arm. So, number 3 was the hook. Now, when we started the hooks, we said there was no way to get to the outside unless we could lift it up. So that's why block, intercept, and just creates that little bit of lift. But with a low punch to the ribs, obviously it's going to become really, really hard. So if I'm doing this, Brian's trying to get underneath it. He's going to have to go a really long way. So it loses its practicality. All right? So here's our first place where we hit a kind of a dead end in the principle of getting to the outside if we're going to try and rely on the block and the movement. However, if we rely on trying to move back and around, so as I do this punch, he intercepts, or hold on, if he intercepts and then redirects and pulls it past his body. Maybe, Brian, if you're hitting for my ribs, 1, so he's trying to hit ribs, and what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to use something that we worked on in tournament, which is basically just giving it the slip. Okay, so as he takes that low shot, I'm just changing my feet. By just matching my feet, I'm allowing myself the opportunity to get in. And then all I need to do, add to that, is maybe reposition myself that I'm next to the person. Sometimes it's a good idea to be here because I can kick kansetsugeri. Sometimes I might want to be here so I can think about susortion. Okay, so we can now work on this. Okay, so Brian, I'm going to be throwing short hooks into the ribs. You're going to give me the slip and around. Oh, Brian, you make your life so difficult. Move your feet back. Okay, you can see there's no effort. I'm not interested in any effort from my side. The whole idea is to just try and facilitate his movement. You're not moving back, you're standing your ground. So, anybody can rely on hit this. Right, and it's a good lesson in itself. A lot of people will. But what happens when the guy is this big and this wide and you're out, like weighted, outsized? You can't say, well, all right, I'm going to block down and break his arm. It just doesn't work. But the idea is that I might be able to move back. Watch. I'm here. You're missing. Because your trajectory is going there. So, I'm not trying to go, I'm trying to get a little bit of touch, a little bit of tactile, like kakie. A little bit of touch, no, like kakie, but on this side. And that's hop guiding. And then this side is just controlling. Okay? So I'm here. He decides to hook with that side. I go back and around. The importance of this exercise is made more evident when you do chi-down mawashi geri. Because then, if you don't create enough space, you end up crashing into a leg and into a knee. Or if the person has got these kind of low cutting kicks where they kick up into the ribs, if you're trying to stop them and block them, eventually, the leg outweighs the arm. The physics just doesn't dictate that it's successful. How do you deal with kicks? In the exact same way. So should the person be doing, let's say we jump ahead like a couple of different techniques. Let's say the person is doing front kick. A lot of the time, the person doing front kick, if you drop and do this kind of thing, then obviously bring your face forward. All right. If you're swiveling, I used to love swiveling on the kicks. So if you're standing, you're doing some kind of randori, you close quarters and the person kicks, and you swivel to the inside, then this hand is more than likely going to hit you this side. If you move to the outside, then you've got to deal with this hand, either uraken or an elbow, or should the person feel that they want to be like maybe Chuck Norris, then whoop, you get hit in the face with a spinning back uraken. The whole idea is that you will eventually be adapting to it. But in the facilitation drill, what we really want to be doing is we don't want to be blocking hard. And the problem is that pain over time, over let's say an hour-long session or 2-hour-long sparring sessions where there's not much protective equipment and it's shins and forearms against one another, eventually you're going home with bruises everywhere. Now, if you drive a pen and a keyboard and a mouse and you're an office jockey, or even if you're a tradesman and you need your arms and your legs to work, it's really, really difficult to earn a living if you're full of bruises. It doesn't make any sense. So it's important that we look at how to try and improve what we're doing to make it more efficient. Most people find it easy to be hard. Most people find it really hard to be soft and gentle and fluid-like, to outmaneuver your opponent. So as we're standing, if I'm standing from a neutral stance, then the moment he kicks, I'm basically going to touch and just redirect and then bring my hands up. Once I get to this position, I'm going to be basically in some kind of combative position. Now, for the sake of doing maegeri and facilitation, Brian is going to redirect himself. So the most natural thing for him now would be to try and do a side kick or a kick to my knee with this leg. But I actually want him to move back, and he's going to kick. Now, he's got a choice. When he moves back, he can kick with his left or his right leg. He doesn't have to do the opposite leg. So, Brian, you ready? Let's go kick. And we're moving. So I block and I cover the entire time. And I try not to block too hard. And, Brian, let's move and kick. And we're covering. One of the nice things, if you've learned the kata sepai, you see this blocking technique. It's block maybe with this hand, but this hand is facilitating covering your opponent's guard hand or his lead hand. And so you build on this. And this becomes our next drill. Oi. Brian, go more straight for the target. It doesn't have to be powerful, but if you're getting me in the guts because I'm not moving, then there's something happening. Roundhouse kick. Exact same movement. I'm talking chu-down mawashi for now. Same idea as what we had for that hook to the ribs. So if we're standing, we're not trying, Brian kicks, we're not trying to take it and like, what was that kickboxer movie? We're not trying to do that because sooner or later somebody's ribs are going to get broken. We are not thinking like WKF where the idea is catch and hit. It works, but his kick has landed. We're not thinking along the lines of he kicks. One, this person is now hitting. We're trying to make it continuous, and we're, again, all three of those, I basically stood my ground. So as he is kicking, what I'm going to do is pull and move in. I might give him a bit of a push so that now the next kick is coming. And again, the idea is facilitation. So if I don't move, his kick ought to land. So if he's kicking, very important. Most people continuously kick in front. But if I don't move, his kick ought to land. So it's very important that I move and that I move in. One of the key parts of this is Brian is slowly, I'm in range at the moment, as he kicks is that as I touch and I hold for as long as possible, I don't let go here and let him land there, because if the next thing is that leg's coming up or he's doing a back kick or a spinning hook kick or an hurricane. All right? But the idea again is that as that kick comes again, please, Brian, one, is to kind of close that distance. We want to get to this position. And again, if I get too far onto his back, I then run the risk of this backhand coming out. So we are vigilant of it. We are vigilant of other ideas. And again, I'm repeating the same technique, but it could be any number of techniques. All right? And so we build on facilitation. Now, once we've got a punch, a front kick, and a roundhouse kick to the body, we can then, again, build a 3-combination drill. Or we've got 6 techniques, 8 techniques, we can build an 8-combination drill, where I attack 8 times, then he attacks 8 times, and I've got to pick them off. So I've got to think a little bit. And it's a good idea because a lot of the time, if you don't think about what you're going to do as the attack, most of the time we basically allow ourselves to regress to Kazamizuki and Gyakuzuki. And this is a problem, and it's a throwback to an upbringing in sport karate. Well, that sport karate is bad. It serves a good functional base for a lot of people to get an idea of the thrill and the exhilaration and the hormonal load in fighting. Randori, number 1. At all times in the training, one of the 2 people, in this case it's a 2-person drill session, one of the 2 people is always the facilitator. There's no point in being macho. 2, make sure that if you're not getting something, go back to a more basic form of how to do it and work and polish it. So start on basic and then allow it to escalate. Don't jump to 5 movement combinations straight away. Start on one thing, work and polish. And in this case, we're working exclusively and solely on one key idea: moving your feet to the outside line to close the distance and to control the opponent. It is by no means the only footwork to learn. It is by no means the only solution to have. There are many options. After all, it's fighting. Anything can happen. And it is just the first step in a road of many steps in learning how to do Randori effectively without ego. It takes a lot of relaxed and not really worried too much about how hard and how straight and how perfect my technique is to facilitate his growth. So you throw the ego out, and as things get better, you can increase a little bit of weight, a little bit more power, a little bit more speed. And that takes time. And the essential thing is it's the continuous training that will produce results over the long term. For everybody else around the world who has not been able to do contact work and sparring, hopefully you'll get there soon. Hopefully we will stay in this environment we're in South Africa right now, and hopefully it'll allow us to escalate over the next while. We do miss doing Randori and groundwork so much in our Goju Karate Center. That is it for tonight. Thank you very much. Hi, arigato gozaimasu, Brian. Thank you very much. Arigato gozaimasu. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. And to everybody else out there who has joined our memberships, as well as dropped a super thank you, we really do appreciate it. If you'd like to become a member, we have a live stream coming up soon, and I'll probably be doing something interesting in the live stream. Arigato, sayonara. Good night, everybody.